For thousands of years, before pills, before pharmacies, before any of this modern medicine existed, men in ancient civilizations had one secret weapon. Not a supplement company, not a doctor's prescription. Roots pulled straight from the ground, herbs grown in their own backyards. And today, we're going to break down 10 of the most powerful plants that have stood the test of time, used by warriors, kings, and everyday men to feel stronger, more energetic, and more confident in the bedroom and in life. Stick around till the end, because plant number 7 is one almost nobody talks about, and it might surprise you. Let's get into it. Plant 1, Ashwagandha. Ashwagandha, scientifically known as Withania somnifera, has roots, literally and figuratively, going back over 3,000 years in Ayurvedic medicine, one of the oldest continuously practiced medical systems on Earth. The name Ashwagandha actually comes from Sanskrit, roughly translating to smell of horse, because ancient texts claimed that consuming it gave a man the strength and vitality of a horse. Whether or not that's literally true, the symbolism stuck for thousands of years. It grows as a small shrub with yellow flowers and red berries, native to India, parts of the Middle East, and North Africa. Traditional healers used the root dried and ground into powder as a general tonic for the entire body, not just for one specific issue. In classical Ayurvedic texts, Ashwagandha was classified as a rasyana, a category of herbs believed to promote longevity, strength, and overall vitality. It was given to soldiers before battle to build physical resilience, elderly individuals to maintain strength with age, anyone dealing with general weakness, poor sleep, or nervous exhaustion, what we now probably just call chronic stress. The key active compounds in ashwagandha are called withanolides, naturally occurring steroidal compounds that researchers believe are responsible for most of its effects on the body's stress response system. This is where ashwagandha stands out from a lot of traditional herbs, because it's been studied fairly extensively in modern clinical settings. A widely cited 2019 study published in a peer-reviewed journal gave men a standardized ashwagandha extract daily over an 8-week period. Compared to the placebo group, the ashwagandha group reported significantly higher self-rated stamina, energy levels, and reduced perceived stress. Separately, multiple studies have looked at ashwagandha's effect on cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. Several trials found measurable reductions in cortisol levels among chronically stressed adults taking ashwagandha extract daily. Here's why this matters more than people realize. Chronic stress and high cortisol are linked to lower testosterone, poor sleep, low energy, and reduced libido. So even though ashwagandha isn't directly boosting anything in a dramatic way, it may be removing one of the biggest invisible blockers to feeling like yourself, stress. There's also emerging research specifically on male fertility markers, with some small studies showing improvements in sperm count and motility in men taking ashwagandha, though researchers are clear that larger studies are still needed to confirm this. Ashwagandha is typically taken as a root extract in capsule form, standardized to a certain percentage of withanolides, commonly 5%. It's generally taken once or twice daily. Some people report mild drowsiness, so many prefer taking it in the evening. It is not recommended for people with autoimmune conditions, pregnant women, or those on thyroid medication without speaking to a doctor first, since ashwagandha can affect thyroid hormone levels. Plant 2, Maca root. High in the Andes Mountains of Peru, at altitudes where almost nothing else can grow, there's a root vegetable that's been cultivated for over 2,000 years, maca. Maca belongs to the same family as broccoli and cabbage, but it grows underground like a radish, surviving brutal cold, intense UV exposure, and thin mountain air. The Incan civilization considered it valuable enough to use as currency and tribute payment to the Spanish. Local legend says Incan warriors ate maca before long marches and battles to maintain stamina and strength in the harsh mountain conditions, though it's worth noting this is oral tradition, not a documented historical record. Indigenous Peruvian communities have used maca root for centuries as a food staple, not just a medicine. It was typically dried, boiled, or ground into flour and consumed as part of the daily diet, particularly by people doing intense physical labor at high altitude. It was also traditionally given to both men and women for fertility and reproductive health support. Maca contains unique compounds called macamides and macenes, found nowhere else in the plant kingdom. Scientists believe these compounds interact with the nervous system, though the exact mechanism is still being studied. Unlike a lot of traditional herbs, maca has actually attracted real scientific curiosity, partly because it doesn't behave like a typical hormone-altering herb. A systematic review of multiple clinical trials found that maca root supplementation showed a measurable improvement in self-reported sexual desire in adult men, compared to placebo. And notably, this happened without any significant change in testosterone or other hormone levels. This is actually the most interesting part scientifically. Maca doesn't appear to work like a hormone. Researchers believe it may instead act on neurological pathways related to mood and motivation, which is why people who use it often describe a gradual, steady increase in drive rather than a sudden spike. A separate, smaller study on men experiencing antidepressant-related sexual side effects found that maca supplementation modestly improved sexual function and satisfaction in that specific group. An interesting finding, though again, more research is needed before drawing big conclusions. Maca is typically sold as a powder, often added to smoothies, or in capsule form. Black maca specifically has been the variety most studied for male stamina and libido in research, more so than the yellow or red varieties. It's generally considered safe for most healthy adults, but those with thyroid conditions should be cautious, since maca is a cruciferous vegetable and can affect iodine uptake in sensitive individuals. Plant 3. Tongkat Ali. Deep in the rainforests of Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand, grows a tall, slender tree called Eurycoma longifolia, known locally as Tongkat Ali, which translates roughly to Ali's walking stick, referencing the long, root-like shape of the plant's most valuable part. It's also sometimes called Malaysian ginseng, even though it's botanically unrelated to actual ginseng. The nickname stuck purely because of its reputation as a male vitality herb. Traditional Malay medicine has used Tongkat Ali for generations, primarily by harvesting the root, drying it, and either boiling it into a bitter tea or grinding it into a powder. Traditional healers across Southeast Asia use Tongkat Ali for an unusually wide range of purposes. As a general energy tonic, a fever reducer, a remedy for malaria symptoms, and most famously as a male vitality and stamina enhancer. It earned such a strong cultural reputation that today, it's one of the most heavily researched traditional male health herbs in the modern supplement industry. The root contains compounds called quasinoids, eurycomenon, and various other bioactive molecules. Eurycomenon in particular has become the focus of most modern Tongkat Ali research. This is one of the more promising herbs on this list in terms of actual clinical research. Multiple human studies have examined Tongkat Ali's effect on testosterone, particularly in men with lower than normal testosterone levels due to age or chronic stress. Several of these studies found measurable increases in total testosterone after consistent supplementation over several weeks. One frequently cited study on physically stressed, Aging adults found that Tongkat Ali supplementation led to improvements in stress hormone profiles, alongside improvements in mood and overall well-being scores. Other smaller studies specifically focused on stamina and athletic performance have shown modest improvements in physical performance markers among trained men, though sample sizes in these studies tend to be small. It's worth being clear here. Tongkat Ali appears to be most effective in men who start with lower testosterone levels. Studies on men with already normal or high testosterone tend to show much smaller, sometimes negligible effects, which makes sense biologically, since you can't meaningfully boost something that isn't deficient. Tongkat Ali is usually standardized by its urocominon content, commonly labeled as LJ100 or similar standardized extracts in supplements. It's typically taken once daily. Because of its effect on hormone levels, it's generally recommended men cycle Tongkat Ali rather than take it continuously for months on end without a break. And anyone with hormone-sensitive conditions should absolutely consult a doctor first. Plant 4. Fenugreek. Fenugreek, scientifically Trigonella phonemgreecum, is one of the oldest cultivated medicinal plants on the planet, with archaeological evidence of its use dating back to ancient Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt, where it was found in Egyptian tombs alongside other valuable items. Today, it's a common spice in Indian, Middle Eastern, and Mediterranean cooking, but historically, it carried a much bigger medicinal reputation than just flavoring food. Ancient Egyptian, Greek, and Ayurvedic medicine all used fenugreek seeds for a wide variety of purposes: digestive support, lactation support for new mothers, and notably as a general vitality and strength tonic. For men. Greek physicians reportedly fed fenugreek to cattle to fatten them up and increase their vigor, and by extension, began testing it on humans for similar, strengthening effects. Fenugreek seeds are rich in saponins, specifically a compound called protodiosine, along with fiber, alkaloids, and flavonoids. Fenugreek has a surprisingly solid amount of modern clinical research behind it, particularly from sports science and men's health journals. One notable study published in a sports nutrition journal followed men taking a standardized fenugreek extract over 6 weeks while doing resistance training. The fenugreek group reported significant improvements in self-rated libido and sexual function scores compared to the placebo group, alongside modest improvements in strength markers. Another study specifically measuring testosterone in men taking fenugreek extract daily over 12 weeks found a measurable increase in free testosterone levels, alongside improvements in body composition. Researchers believe the saponin compounds in fenugreek may help the body utilize its own testosterone more efficiently, rather than artificially spiking hormone production, though the exact mechanism is still being studied. Fenugreek extract is typically standardized for saponin content and taken in capsule form, often dosed once or twice daily. As a food spice, it's also extremely safe in normal culinary amounts, meaning you can start incorporating it into cooking even before considering a supplement. One funny but harmless side effect reported in several studies: fenugreek can cause sweat and urine to take on a maple syrup-like smell, completely harmless, just unexpected if nobody warns you about it. Plant 5. Red Panax Ginseng. Ginseng might be the single most famous energy herb in the entire world, and red Panax ginseng specifically comes from Korea and parts of China, where it's been cultivated and used in traditional Chinese medicine for over 2,000 years. The name Panax actually comes from the Greek word for panacea, meaning a cure-all, which gives you a sense of just how highly ancient physicians regarded this root. Red ginseng specifically refers to ginseng root that's been steamed and dried, a processing method that changes its chemical composition compared to raw white ginseng. And notably, Red ginseng is the variety most studied for male sexual health specifically. In traditional Chinese medicine, ginseng was considered one of the most powerful tonic herbs available, used to restore qi, or vital life energy, in people who were exhausted, aging, or recovering from illness. It was historically expensive and reserved for emperors, nobility, and the wealthy, with wild ginseng roots sometimes being worth more than gold by weight. The active compounds responsible for most of ginseng's effects are called ginsenosides, a unique class of compounds found almost exclusively in the ginseng plant family. Here's where this plant separates itself from almost everything else on this list. Red Panax ginseng has genuine, repeated human clinical trial evidence specifically for sexual health, which is rare in herbal medicine. A well-cited study published in the British Journal of Clinical Pharmacology gave men with diagnosed erectile difficulties a standardized red ginseng extract over several weeks. The result: a statistically significant improvement in erectile function scores compared to the placebo group. A separate larger review combining multiple clinical trials on red ginseng and male sexual function concluded that there was meaningful evidence supporting ginseng's positive effect on erectile function specifically. One of the strongest conclusions of any herb in this entire video. Researchers believe ginsenosides may work by supporting nitric oxide production in blood vessels, nitric oxide being the same pathway that many prescription medications for erectile function target, just through a much milder, natural mechanism. Beyond sexual health specifically, ginseng has also been studied for general fatigue, with multiple trials showing improvements in self-rated energy and reduced fatigue scores in adults taking it daily over several weeks. Red ginseng is typically taken as a standardized root extract, often dosed at 600 mg, 1000 mg daily split across 1 or 2 doses. Quality matters enormously here. Look specifically for Korean red ginseng or Panax ginseng with verified ginsenoside content, since cheaper products are sometimes diluted or mislabeled. Ginseng can interact with blood thinners and diabetes medication, so anyone on those should talk to a doctor before adding it. Plant 6, Tribulus terrestris. Tribulus terrestris is a spiky fruited plant that grows wild across warm climates worldwide, from the Mediterranean to India to parts of China and Southeast Asia. Its small, hard fruit is covered in sharp spines, which is actually how it earned nicknames like puncture vine in some regions. Despite its unassuming, almost weed-like appearance, it's been used in both Ayurvedic medicine and traditional Chinese medicine for centuries. In Ayurveda, Tribulus, known as Gakshura, was traditionally used as a tonic for the urinary and reproductive systems, often prescribed for general vitality, kidney support, and male reproductive health. In traditional Chinese medicine, it was used to support liver function and what practitioners described as yang energy, a concept loosely related to vitality, warmth, and drive in the body. Tribulus contains compounds called steroidal saponins, particularly one called protodiosine, the same type of compound found in Fenugreek, interestingly enough. This is where we need to be completely transparent with you, because Tribulus is one of the most heavily marketed and most scientifically mixed herbs in the entire men's supplement industry. Several studies, particularly ones conducted in Bulgaria and parts of Eastern Europe, found improvements in libido and self-rated sexual satisfaction in men taking Tribulus extract. However, and this is important, multiple well-controlled studies specifically measuring testosterone levels found no significant increase in testosterone from Tribulus supplementation, even in studies where subjective libido scores improved. This creates an interesting scientific puzzle. How can libido improve without a testosterone increase? Some researchers theorize Tribulus may work on different pathways entirely, possibly affecting mood, blood flow, or nitric oxide production rather than hormones directly. But honestly, the research isn't conclusive enough yet to say for certain. Despite the mixed science, Tribulus remains one of the best-selling herbal supplements for men worldwide, largely driven by long-standing traditional reputation and consistently positive subjective reports, even without strong hormonal evidence behind it. If you're considering it, go in with realistic expectations. It's unlikely to dramatically change your hormone levels, but some men do report a noticeable subjective improvement in drive and confidence. Plant 7. Pine bark extract. Here's the one we promised you at the start, the quiet underdog of this entire list. Pine bark extract, commercially known under the trademark name Pycnogenol, comes from the bark of French maritime pine trees, native to the coastal regions of southwestern France. Unlike most herbs on this list, pine bark extract doesn't have thousands of years of traditional use behind it in the same way. Its modern popularity actually traces back to a French explorer in the 1500s, who reportedly learned from indigenous people in North America that pine bark tea helped cure scurvy among his crew during a brutal winter. Centuries later, in the 1980s, French scientists isolated and patented the specific antioxidant blend now sold as Pycnogenol. While not deeply rooted in ancient medicine the way ginseng or ashwagandha are, pine bark has been used in folk remedies across parts of Europe and North America for circulation-related issues, wound healing, and inflammation, long before its antioxidant compounds were scientifically isolated. Pine bark extract is extremely rich in proanthocyanidins, powerful antioxidant compounds, along with various flavonoids and organic acids. This is genuinely one of the most interesting entries on this list, because the research isn't really about hormones or libido directly, it's about circulation, and that turns out to matter enormously. Several clinical studies have combined Pycnogenol with the amino acid L-arginine and found measurable improvements in erectile function in men with mild erectile difficulties, particularly those related to poor circulation. The proposed mechanism is fascinating. Pycnogenol appears to support the blood vessel lining's ability to produce nitric oxide, the same molecule responsible for blood vessel dilation, while L-arginine provides the raw material the body needs to actually produce that nitric oxide. Together, several studies found this combination outperformed either ingredient alone. Beyond sexual health specifically, Pycnogenol has a substantial body of research on general cardiovascular health, including studies showing improvements in blood flow, reduced inflammation markers, and better circulation in adults with various circulatory issues. And here's why that broader point matters so much for this entire topic. Stamina and performance are fundamentally about blood flow and oxygen delivery. A plant that genuinely improves circulation may be doing more for overall stamina than herbs that get far more attention and marketing hype. Pycnogenol is typically dosed around 40–120 mg daily in studies, often combined with L-arginine in combination supplements specifically marketed for circulation and male performance support. Because of its blood-thinning adjacent effects on circulation, anyone on blood pressure medication or blow odd thinners should check with a doctor first. Plant 8. Horny goatweed. Yes, that's really its common name, and the origin story is exactly what you'd expect. Old Chinese folklore claims a goat herder noticed his goats becoming unusually active after grazing on this particular plant, and the name stuck for centuries afterward. Scientifically known as epimedium, this plant grows across China, Korea, and Japan, and has been part of traditional Chinese medicine formularies for well over 1,000 years. In traditional Chinese medicine, epimedium, known as yin-yang huo, was classified as a yang tonic. used to treat what practitioners described as weakness, low back pain, joint issues, and male reproductive concerns, often combined with other herbs in complex traditional formulas rather than used alone. The primary compound of interest is called icariin, a flavonoid unique to the epimedium plant family. We need to be extra careful and honest with this one, because it's also one of the most overhyped herbs in Western supplement marketing. Laboratory and animal studies have shown that icariin may have a mild effect on PDE5 inhibition, which, in plain English, means it works on a similar biological pathway to certain prescription erectile dysfunction medications, just dramatically weaker in effect. However, and this is the critical caveat, most of this evidence comes from animal and laboratory studies, not large-scale human clinical trials. Human research on epimedium specifically for sexual performance is still extremely limited, and what does exist tends to involve epimedium combined with multiple other herbs, making it hard to isolate its individual effect. This is a clear example of a plant where traditional reputation has outpaced solid modern human evidence, which doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't work, but it does mean the confident claims you see in supplement marketing are running ahead of what science can currently prove. If you come across horny goat weed supplements, understand you're relying primarily on centuries of traditional use and promising but preliminary lab research, not robust human clinical proof. As always, especially with this one, professional medical guidance is important, particularly because of its theoretical interaction with blood pressure and heart medications. Plant 9. Saffron. Saffron is famously the most expensive spice in the world by weight, and for good reason. It comes from the delicate threads inside the Crocus sativus flower, and each flower produces only 3 tiny threads, all hand-harvested. It takes tens of thousands of flowers to produce just 1 kilogram of saffron. Saffron's use dates back over 3,000 years, with historical records from ancient Persia, Greece, and Egypt all referencing its use, not just as a spice and dye, but as a medicinal and mood-enhancing substance. Persian traditional medicine in particular used saffron extensively for mood-related concerns, what ancient texts described as melancholy or low spirits, alongside its use in treating various physical ailments. Saffron's key active compounds are crocin and saffronol, both of which give saffron its distinctive color, aroma, and most of its researched biological effects. Saffron's modern research story is genuinely interesting because most of the strong evidence is actually about mood, not directly about physical stamina, and that connection turns out to matter more than people expect. Multiple clinical trials have found saffron extract to be effective at improving mood and reducing symptoms in adults dealing with low mood, with some studies comparing its effects favorably to certain mood support medications, though saffron is obviously far gentler and not a replacement for prescribed treatment. More specifically relevant to this video, a few clinical studies have looked at saffron's effect on sexual function in men experiencing medication-related side effects, particularly those on certain mood support medications known to reduce libido as a side effect. These studies found saffron supplementation modestly improved sexual function and satisfaction scores in that specific population. Why does this matter for stamina broadly? Because psychological stress, anxiety, and low mood are some of the single biggest factors affecting male performance and confidence, arguably bigger than most hormonal or circulatory factors for a large percentage of men. A plant that genuinely supports healthy mood balance can have a real ripple effect on performance, simply by calming the mind. Saffron extract supplements are typically standardized for crocin content and dosed around 30 mg daily in most studies. Given its cost, make sure any supplement you consider clearly states its saffron content and sourcing, since saffron is unfortunately one of the most commonly adulterated spices in the world. Plant 10. Garlic. We're ending with the most surprising and most humble plant on this entire list, because it's probably sitting in your kitchen right now. Garlic has been used medicinally for over 5,000 years, with documented use in ancient Egypt, where it was reportedly fed to laborers building the pyramids to maintain their strength and endurance, and ancient Greece, where Olympic athletes were sometimes given garlic before competing. Across nearly every ancient civilization, Egyptian, Greek, Roman, Chinese, and Indian medicine, garlic was used as a general strength and endurance tonic, alongside its well-known use for immune and respiratory support. Garlic's primary active compound is allicin, released when raw garlic is crushed or chopped, along with various sulfur compounds responsible for its strong smell and many of its researched health benefits. Garlic has one of the largest bodies of modern cardiovascular research of any plant on this entire list, and that circulatory connection is exactly why it belongs here. Multiple clinical studies and meta-analyses have found that regular garlic consumption is associated with modest improvements in blood pressure, healthier cholesterol profiles, and improved blood vessel function in adults. And just like we discussed with pine bark extract earlier in this video, stamina and physical performance are deeply dependent on cardiovascular health and circulation. A heart and blood vessel system that's working efficiently delivers oxygen and nutrients more effectively throughout the entire body, which directly supports endurance and stamina during physical activity of any kind. There's also some preliminary research suggesting garlic compounds may support healthy testosterone levels in animal studies specifically, though human evidence for this particular effect is still limited and far less established than garlic's cardiovascular research. The simplest way to use garlic is also the cheapest, incorporating fresh, raw, or lightly cooked garlic into your regular diet. For more concentrated effects, aged garlic extract supplements are commonly used in clinical research, since they reduce the strong odor while preserving key compounds. So there you have it, 10 plants that have stood the test of time, used by men across different cultures for thousands of years. Now here's the important part. None of these are magic. They work best alongside good sleep, regular exercise, low stress, and a healthy diet. And if you're dealing with a persistent issue, please talk to a real doctor, not a YouTube video, not a supplement ad. But if you're looking for natural ways to support your energy, confidence, and stamina, these 10 plants are a great place to start. If this video helped you, hit that subscribe button. We're breaking down real, honest health topics every single week. No hype, no BS. See you in the next one.